Hi, I'm Claire and this is all about Avengers Infinity War. I'm a huge fan of the MCU and I was super excited to see the film. I went yesterday with John pretty much as soon as we could in the morning, and then we spent ages talking about the film, and I've been mulling it over pretty much since I saw it. I have some thoughts. So from now on, here be spoilers, you have been warned. Okay, first let's go in for some general thoughts and then I have a few more specific things that I want to address. But overall I really enjoyed Infinity War. I had a great time in the theater. The film is really fun, especially for something that goes as dark as this movie tries to go, and I have more thoughts about that. There was a lot of action, including some beautifully choreographed, like massive set pieces that are a lot of fun to watch. There was also a lot of good humor in there, and I thought that most of the jokes landed really well, and again I'll go into why a bit more. One thing that I was quite surprised is some people mentioning that they found the film really emotional, and I didn't find that at all. Or rather, I didn't think that the bits that the movie clearly meant to be emotional worked all that well, and again, I will come back to that. The whole movie looked really colourful and visually interesting in the same way that some of the more recent movies have looked, like the Guardian films and Thor Ragnarok, and also the whole aesthetic that they created for Black Panther that's so different than what we've seen before. Now obviously in this film, again, we go to space, to various planets, we go to Wakanda, like we see shots of various cities being destroyed, but it's not just like New York City or London being messed up again. Like it is nice to have that difference from maybe other superhero movies or earlier superhero movies in the same franchise. There were a few moments that fell flat and really took me out of the story, and by far the biggest one of those was surprise discount Hugo Weaving as Red Skull. Like why? What the crap was he doing there? Let's just pop this bad guy from 2011/1940 into the movie for no reason. He shows up for about 5 minutes, during which he is a lot more imposing and mysterious when you don't know he's the Red Skull and all you can see is this big billowing ring race cloak with no face under the hood. It was just such a bizarre choice to like reveal him like that and then not do anything with it. Just why? Now what I absolutely loved in this movie was seeing all those characters that I love coming together, interacting in hilarious ways, and that I actually found really impacting, like getting to see some of these characters meet for the first time or see each other again for the first time in years. Getting those reactions was wonderful, and all of them really felt in character, like exactly what I'd imagine that person saying. I really enjoyed seeing all the characters from the various different Marvel properties coming together in this film as a big group of characters interacting that don't usually get to interact with each other in their own single character movies. It's really fun to see characters out of their element, like characters whose movies normally happen on Earth and who end up being in space in this one. Or characters like Doctor Strange, who are relatively new to the MCU and haven't interacted with any of the other superheroes yet, and seeing how that unfold. In that same vein, I really appreciated that a lot of the comedy came naturally out of these kind of weird pairings of various superheroes who don't normally work together. Like when Peter Parker doesn't realize that Doctor Strange is actually named Dr. Stephen Strange and that's his real name and not his superhero name. Or when Bruce Banner has to get filled in on everything that he's missed when he was in space. Like he doesn't know that Steve and Tony aren't speaking right now, and he doesn't know that we have a Spider-Man now, and oh, he also doesn't know we have an Ant-Man now. It is just nice to see that continuity being picked up properly. I don't want to sit in the cinema and suddenly wonder, wait a second, how does this person know that? They've been in space for like years. I want a line in the movie that refers to something that happened in a previous film, and I want that to feel like a, oh yeah, kind of moment, where something happens that I hadn't really thought about, but in hindsight it feels completely obvious for the characters and for what they've been through. And I thought Infinity War actually did that really, really well. Everybody gets a little bit of a spotlight moment, they all get nice lines that make sense for their characters that are usually quite funny. but I'll say for some of the characters it's not a lot of lines, not at all. Specifically, I didn't think we got enough of Cap and his sub-team of people. Nat and Sam don't really get much dialogue at all. Their individual kind of spotlight moments come through in the fighting more than in like cool, quotable, memorable lines that they give out. Bucky also doesn't really get much aside from his reunion moment with Steve, which we've already seen in promotional material. A lot of the Wakandan character get a nice bit of fighting in, but we really don't get enough of Shuri. What we had in that was great, but I wanted to see more from her and from those specific characters I've mentioned. And you know, it's a really, really busy movie, so it makes sense that not every character would be able to have loads and loads of dialogue, but part of the issue with Shuri only getting one really great, badass, witty line is that they showed us that in promotional material again. And it's kind of a similar issue that I had in Civil War, where the trailer gives you an expectation of who you're going to see in the movie, and then the movie focuses on different people. And that's kind of disappointing. Like, I don't think it's weird that I expected to see more Cap, because from what we saw in the trailer, there was quite a bit of Cap, and then that wasn't really reflected in the film, which is a bit annoying. Who we did see a lot of were Thor, Tony Stark, Peter Parker, Doctor Strange, and the whole crew from the Guardian movies. And that was mostly great fun, but there was one scene that really frustrated me, and that was the one where they almost got Thanos, but not really. That scene really frustrated me because it started so great and promising. You get this really great moment where Thanos is being held up and incapacitated by everybody's powers together. Spidey's got some web on him. Doctor Strange has got some spell on him. It's a really great shot of everybody working together and being Avengers together. It's a really great setup. And then the fact that the plan doesn't work because Quill realizes that Gamora died, and he's so upset that he's incapable to stop himself from punching Thanos in the face. That didn't really work for me as an emotional beat in the movie, because I just don't think the Guardians movies and this movie have done a really great job establishing Quill and Gamora's relationship. Obviously, it makes sense for Peter Quill's character to completely lose his cool, even though he's been told repeatedly by the rest of the team not to punch Thanos in the face. But then I also thought that it was really weird that in that very scene where Quill is so upset, there are other people within that scene who have more of an emotional connection with Gamora. Nebula is right there. There is a lot more work that is being done in the Guardians movies exploring Gamora and Nebula's relationship as siblings that has more of an emotional basis, where if Nebula was the one who had lost her cool because she couldn't deal with grieving for her sister, it would have made a lot more sense. Speaking of Gamora, I felt like this film really didn't do her justice. The Soul Stone scene in which Gamora is sacrificed by Thanos in order to obtain the Soul Stone. Now that entire scene already starts on such a weird note, because all of a sudden, surprise Red Skull in your face for no reason. But then the fact that as the scene unfolds, you as the audience understand immediately Thanos is going to say, well, the person that I love is Gamora, I have to sacrifice her, I will throw her in the pit and get the Soul Stone. Like, that is really, really obvious to the audience. The fact that Gamora doesn't get that for as long as she doesn't get that is really unfortunate. It makes her look really foolish as a character, and yet she knows Thanos better than we the audience do. She should be able to understand that. It does not make sense for her character to not understand that. Now, she's been living with Thanos as his adoptive daughter for literally decades. She has had years and years and years of learning to know this man, and she says, this relationship, what you feel, it is not love. I'm not going to count because you don't love me, you don't understand what love is. So the fact that she's saying that, but then Thanos is saying, no, I do love you and I'm gonna throw you in this pit, And then that works for him. The Soul Stone thinks, yeah, that's an acceptable sacrifice. That's a soul of someone you love, so I will now come to you. The narrative in essence says, oh, well, Gamora thinks it's not real love because it's this like weird abusive relationship where he's stolen her from her planet. And the narrative kind of sides with Thanos, and it's really weird. If Thanos does love her, then I think Gamora should know that. Gamora, at some point, she has a fake out murdering of Thanos, and she thinks she's done it, and she breaks down into tears because she thinks she's killed her weird murderous adoptive father who stole her from her family and murdered half her planet. Like, she has those feelings, so she should understand that he has them too. And it's really weird that the narrative denies her that and shows her to lack that perception of it. I kind of feel like if you're going to sacrifice one of like 5 women characters who are actually superheroes in this whole franchise so that the baddie can gain an infinity MacGuffin, at least you could do her the courtesy of having a little bit more dignity than that in death. Now let's talk a bit more about Thanos and his plan and his minions, because I thought his minions looked really cool, and it was really cool to have these kind of like mini bosses, because obviously Thanos couldn't be everywhere at once, and a lot of the runtime of the movie was spent with, you know, various superhero sub-teams fighting Thanos's minions. One thing that I wasn't too sure about was whether Thanos's minions actually believe in Thanos's plans, or whether they are actually just afraid to leave because he's gonna murder them if they try to go away. The whole thing with Thanos's like murder half of the people in the universe plan is that it is so ridiculous. It is difficult to take it seriously when Thanos shows up and explains his plan with a straight face and talks about mercy and about improving the universe when, you know, he's a genocidal maniac and he wants to kill half the people in the universe at random because that will somehow make things better. Anyway, the thing that I'm the most ambivalent about in this movie is the overarching plot of it. I don't know how to feel about it, because if you look at it from a technical, structural standpoint, it kind of works. The initial confrontation is set up in a previous movie, and from there everything kind of follows very logically, sort of like a reversed heist. Our heroes know what the bad guy wants. They also know terrible things will happen if he does get the gauntlet with all of the infinity MacGuffins on it. So they make plans to keep the stones from Thanos, to get weapons that can hurt him, to beat him before he can enact his bad plan. They break into a whole bunch of sub-teams to do all of this, and that's actually handled quite elegantly in the script. None of the plans that they make to counter Thanos feel forced or contrived. So in that sense, it works really well. Where I've got more of a question personally is about this movie within the overall direction of the plot of the MCU. This movie as a part 1 of 2, for instance. Like, yes, on the one hand, it's cool that they went there, it's cool that the bad guy won at the end, and it's cool that a whole bunch of characters died, not because I like seeing people that I love die, but because in a lot of these movies the stakes feel really low because you know you're not gonna lose characters that you love, characters that make money for the studio. On the one hand, it is certainly really cool that they went there. On the other hand, there is no way that they're gonna stay there. Most people aren't gonna be dead in this because there are more movies coming. There are actors who have signed more contracts. So when I said earlier that I wasn't like emotionally wrecked by this movie, that's what I meant. Like, I didn't feel all that sad because I do not trust for 1 second that all of this isn't going to get retconned in Infinity War 2. Now I have to say here, I'm talking specifically about the death that happened at the very end of the movie, when half of the universe just drops dead because Thanos got the Infinity Gauntlet with all the stones on it and clicks his fingers. Although drop dead is perhaps not the best phrasing for what happened. I do kind of feel bad laughing about it, but the fact is that this movie used a visual for half of the verse dying that was really close to what the Harry Potter movies used for Voldemort dying. You know, everybody kind of dissolves into this cloud of ash, and it just looks like Voldemort dying. And that was really funny. I kind of went into this movie expecting that Thanos might get like 3 or 4 Infinity Stone on the gauntlet. The second movie would be like, he's almost won, we need to stop him at all costs. But the fact that he did win in this movie, like that became fairly obvious quite early on when he started to gain Infinity Stones really quickly. I kind of got to a point where, you know, once he got all 6 gems in the gauntlet, I did expect him to use it, and he's told us what he was going to do with it. So when everybody died, it wasn't surprising. Because I know there's another movie, and because I know there's another phase of the MCU coming, I didn't really expect that was gonna be it. Like, I'm assuming a lot of people are gonna get revived in the second movie. Now, one of the main reasons I think that is that the supposedly random deaths weren't really random at all. All of the newer superheroes die, but all of the core Avengers from the Avenger movie, like Avenger 1, all of them remain. It's weird to lose both Sam and Bucky when we've been speculating for ages about which of the 2 of them would replace Steve Rogers as Captain America. It's weird losing T'Challa when Black Panther is such a new franchise, such a well-beloved franchise. Surely they want to make more Black Panther movies. It made all the money. They could do those movies with Shuri as the Black Panther, and mind you, I would love a solo Shuri movie, but I want to see her as a scientist. I want to see her as a badass in the field that she has chosen, rather than thrust into the role of Queen, becoming the Black Panther in a way that she's never wanted. All of the Guardians of the Galaxy characters died, and those movies do make a gajillion dollars, even though they're not my favorite in the franchise. Like, a lot of people love those movies, and I do not believe that they have killed these guys for good. Now, I'm almost done, but there are a few more things I would like to know. We have been told that both Ant-Man and Hawkeye, like, are off on the side somewhere, don't ask about it. They are just being monitored by government and they're fine. But there are characters that we didn't see and also didn't get a nice hand-wavy explanation for where they went, and specifically Valkyrie and Korg from Thor Ragnarok, which I loved both of them in this film. They don't appear at all. They were on the ship at the end of Thor Ragnarok, and this movie opens with everybody on the ship getting slaughtered, which doesn't bode well for them, but I think both of them were cool enough that they could have had like on-screen death. Like, if they have both canonically died off screen, I'm gonna be really pissed off. Things I'm looking forward to in the next few movies in the franchise, and of course in Infinity War 2, Captain Marvel, of course. That post-credit scene where just shows a little pixelated Captain Marvel logo on Nick Fury's time beeper, that was so great. I loved that, and I'm really excited about the possibility of getting some time travel in the next movie, some timey-wiminess. Like, that's one of my favorite tropes. I'm super excited for it. One thing I realized when I was taking notes for this video, and I can't believe I didn't like realize when I was actually in the theater, is that Steve and Tony haven't actually been on screen together. They haven't reunited since Civil War. Tony explains to Bruce earlier in the movie that he and Steve are no longer on speaking terms, and I have to imagine by the end of Infinity War 2 they will have met again, they will be, you know, working together again, but this hasn't happened yet. So that's another thing that I'm looking forward to in Infinity War 2. Now, I have 2 little theories that I want to mull over, and the first one is a little bit silly, but I think the second one is actually legit. So I'm going to start with theory the first, the slightly silly one. Do you think that Thor can grow a new Groot from the handle of his new hammer/war axe thing that Peter Dinklage made for him? Because as soon as the steel of that hammer is forged, it falls out of the mold in 2 pieces, and Groot shoots his arm into it to like give it a handle because there's no other handle nearby. Now, we've seen Groot grow back from a sapling before. Maybe Thor can grow himself a new Groot from that. But the second theory/question that I have and that I would love your input about in the comments below is about Doctor Strange and Tony. And do we think that Doctor Strange's prediction mean that Tony has to die in the next movie? Now, Strange says earlier in the movie, if I have to kill you, Tony Stark, or him, Peter Parker, to protect the stone, I definitely will. And then after seeing one and only one possibility for victory out of millions of combinations, he surrenders a stone to Thanos in order to save Tony. But what if he was pulling a Dumbledore? What if he only protected Tony then so that Tony may die at the right time in a future movie to restore the world to a previous state, retconning everything and thus saving the time stone by surrendering Tony's life? So that's it, those were my thoughts about Avengers Infinity War. This video took forever to record, so I hope you'll enjoy it. Let me know in the comments below what you thought of the movie, if you think it's going to all get retconned in Infinity War 2, or if you think some of those deaths will stand. Let me know, like, if people in your movie theater were actively upset about the ending of the movie, because my friend Matt mentioned that people were like crying in his theater, and I was really surprised because, like, comics, no one's ever dead in comics. If you'd like to see more from me, you can check out a previous video on screen right now. And if you haven't yet, please hit the subscribe button that's on my face for a new video from me every week. I've been Claire, thanks so much for watching, and see you soon.